This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-630-1410. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Well, good morning and welcome everybody. Today is Thursday, November 6th, 2005. And so we'll go ahead and call the Energy and Environment Committee meeting to order. So as a reminder, if a member of this body is attending remotely, but not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of the body. So with that, I think we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I will ask if Yvette, our staff member, will help us today. Thank you.
Place your right hand over your heart. Rather you begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And thank you for that. I have to let you do a couple things other than just work for the staff or for the board. So the clerk, could you confirm a quorum, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have quorum.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead now and open it up for the general public for comment. This is the period of the meeting for members of the public to offer comment for matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction, but are not listed on the agenda. Staff, we have we received any written notice for the meeting?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. So we'll move on. And so we'll go ahead and close the public comment period, and we'll go ahead and review and prioritize. Save time if anybody wants to pull anything from the consent calendar. I ask that staff have present before moving to the roll call. So roll call for the consent calendar. So do we have anyone that wants to pull any item on consent today for discussion? See none. Anyone online?
No. Actually, this is Elaine with Simi Valley. Not to pull anything online from the consent, but I did notice in the agenda that my location of where I'm watching the city is listed incorrectly as being on an Indian reservation. So I don't know how that gets rectified, but anyway, just want to be sure that it's correct, that I am where I'm supposed to be, where I said I was going to be.
Okay, Elaine, what we can do is we can certainly follow up with staff after the meeting on that for point of clarification. I don't know if we can deviate from the address. Okay, Jeff, can we talk about that?
Yeah. Just to confirm, member, you are obviously not at the Band of Indians address listed here on the website?
No, I think that was a typo potentially by staff. I'm at the City Hall
Okay.
in Simi Valley.
Unfortunately, it was certainly a clerical mistake on our error. We apologize for that, but because of that, because you're not at a notice location that we were able to notice, we ask that you just observe as a member of the public and not vote on items. You can make public comments for any actions, and we'll make sure that that mistake doesn't happen again. Apologize for the error, but because it's not a location.
Understood. I suspected that might be the case, but okay.
Thank you,
Sorry to
Brian.
hear that, but I understood. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up for keep clarification on the meeting minutes. So at this time, we had nothing to pull from consent, so I'll be looking for someone to move the item.
Brian Jost, Chino Hills, I'll move the item.
Okay, we have Chino Hills moving the item and the vice chair seconding. Oh, that's right. And also, okay. And also, any public comment in attending or online? Hearing none. Okay, we'll move it back to move. We have a move and a second, and roll call vote, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll proceed with roll call. Anna Beltran. Art Bishop.
Bishop, yes.
Martha Cardina Singh. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Margaret Clark.
Here. I mean,
Thank you.
yes, sorry.
Thank you. Robert Copeland.
Yes.
Thank you. Jenny Crosswhite.
Yes.
Ned Davis.
Ned Davis, yes.
Rick Dennison.
Dennison, yes.
Carmen Hernandez.
Yes.
Sherry Horn.
Horn, yes.
Britt Huff.
Huff, yes.
Brian Joes.
Brian Jost, aye.
Joe Kalmick. Stephen Leash. Biani Lopez. Yes. Biani Lopez, thank you. Yasmin Imani McMorrin. Corey Moss.
Yes.
Daniel Ramos.
Ramos, yes.
Suli Saro. Jennifer Stark.
Yes.
Ali-
Jennifer Stark, yes. Sorry, I was slow to unmute.
That's all right, thank you. Ali Taj.
Ali Taj, yes.
Thank you. Tamala Takahashi.
Yes.
Connor Trout.
Yes.
Stephanie Vergen.
Yes.
Dale Welty.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the motion for consent passes with 20 votes for yes, 0 votes for no, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you very much. So now we'll move on. Let's see here. Sort out a few pages here. Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to information items. So agenda item number 4, which is Connect SoCal 2024 Implementation Strategies Update. We have a 10-minute presentation, and so we'll go ahead and start off on that. The floor is yours.
Apologies. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, committee members and members of the public. Let me just quickly make sure that the remote is working for the PowerPoint. All right, I'll use the keyboard instead. All right, that's fine. So this past June, we provided an update on some major milestones on the implementation strategies that were included in our adopted regional transportation plan and sustainable community strategy, also known as Connect SoCal 2024. And today I'm here to provide another update on the new milestones that SCAG has achieved. So for context, direct implementation of Connect SoCal 2024 primarily relies on the actions and decisions of other transportation agencies, local jurisdictions, and actors in the private sector to operate transit service, install new bike paths, approve new land uses, or build new housing. But SCAG takes a leadership role in establishing the vision and goals and identifying policy, strategies, and funding to reach those goals.
Connect SoCal 2024 includes regional planning policies which provide guidance on integrating land use and transportation planning to realize the vision of Connect SoCal. The implementation strategies articulate priorities for SCAG's efforts in fulfilling or going beyond the regional planning policies and identify ways that SCAG will lead, partner, or support other responsible parties. There are 4 primary ways that we support our partners in implementation. We coordinate policy efforts across the jurisdictions and stakeholders. We ensure that state and federally funded transportation projects and programs support Connect SoCal and assist the region in advancing key performance measures. We conduct data collection, analysis, and research to further policy advancement. And we provide funding and resources for local government through programs like Go Human, the Sustainable Communities Program, or SCP, the Regional Early Action Planning Program, or REAP, and the Local Information Services Program to enable our partners to advance Connect SoCal goals in their communities. Now, apologies in advance, the PowerPoint slide here incorrectly notes that this is the 2nd update, but this is in fact the 3rd implementation progress update since the adoption of Connect SoCal 2024 in April of last year. The detailed report in your agenda packet includes milestone progress for 56 implementation strategies. And in total, since then, SCAG has progressed on 80 of the 93 implementation strategies since plan adoption. And since then, 3 strategies have been completed, 1 community strategy for housing the region, and 2 economy strategies on broadband. In the report in your agenda packet, the implementation strategies are organized by regional planning policy categories within the 4 Connect SoCal goal pillars of mobility, communities, environment, and economy. And I'll highlight a few recent accomplishments among the implementation strategies, considering the committee's interests and priorities. So for this committee, we'll go over mobility, communities, and over to environment. And specifically for environment, in June, SCAG staff presented the completed water white paper to this committee. SCAG also supported the County of Los Angeles in developing the Resilient Rebuild Resource Guide, which is a resource for homeowners and home builders rebuilding after the January wildfires in a manner that enhances wildfire resilience. SCAG also kicked off work for the Natural and Agricultural Lands Economic and Resilience Benefits Study and held listening sessions this past October. And for economy, under goods movement, we want to highlight that under the air quality category, Regional Council approved the last mile freight program rebate opportunity this past September and is anticipated to launch this fall. This program provides support or supports the conversion of Class 4 and Class 5 battery electric vehicles, and that provides fleet operators engaged in last mile delivery and the opportunity to modernize their fleets with zero emission vehicles. We have other slides here, but for the purpose of this committee, those are what I wanted to highlight. But I'm happy to take, I know that was short, but I'm happy to take any questions considering that if we have enough time.
Leslie, thank you very much for the presentation. It was good to follow. And there's a lot of additional information in here also for the process and where we're at and what's ongoing. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open it up for questions from anyone in attendance today. From the public, anyone online?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Brian Joe said Chino Hills. Do we know when that last mile program or project will be going live for applicants?
So the last time I spoke with staff, they were anticipating to kick off within like the past couple of weeks. So we'll follow up with you on the exact date, but it is anticipated to start very, very soon. So we can get you more details on that.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just do online one more time just to make sure that the public has an opportunity to speak. If nothing, then we'll bring it back to the membership. Okay, yes, Sarah, please.
I had a question about.
Can you put on your microphone, please?
Sorry. Thank you for the reminder. Suli Saro, City of Long Beach. I wanted to just get clarification on how we supported the County of LA's development of the Resilient Rebuild Resource Guide. What does that mean in terms of staffing or other assistance?
Sure. So I was the co-chair of that along with some staff members for LA County. And essentially we convened a number of jurisdictions impacted by the fire or supporting fire recovery. And we went through a process of looking at other jurisdictions around the country who had recently done fire recovery and what types of resources they had put together to help facilitate knowledge sharing with residents. So help them think through implications for their redesign. How do you rebuild? How do you rebuild more energy efficiency? What types of materials do you utilize to increase fire resilience? Then we also looked at materials they had related to the contractor side of things. So how can contractors receive more education, understand these types of technologies and materials as well? We also interviewed those various departments, and then we utilized a lot of their materials and incorporated them into a website at LA County's Rebuild and Recover website to effectively, publish those resources and connect them. That is part of a broader effort that LA County has done, such as like concierge services, so that they can connect people directly to planners and one-on-one discussions. But that resource guide will continue to evolve over time as more is learned, but is essentially to be an accessible resource for people who don't live in this world to navigate the rebuilding process.
Thank you. Because it's also a resource, the region also, because we had such a robust conversation post the fire and discussion about building resiliency and how many cities are exploring, well, how do we do prevention? I'm just wondering how that could be a helpful guide as well, because it kind of goes in a cycle where crises occur. We're putting all our energy to a response and we think about prevention, and then so many things happen in between, and then there's no sense of urgency anymore in prevention. So I'm just wondering, how do we keep that momentum going in ensuring that we build resiliency for the region?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you followed it closely, you saw there was a lot of different efforts in this space over the last year. So there was this effort. Also, another resource I would definitely recommend is the USGBC in parallel, and we coordinated with them. Did a very
What's USBG?
USGBC is the U.S. Green Building Council. And so their local chapter led an effort, which we consulted with them on, to provide pretty much a comprehensive guide how homeowners could rebuild both their houses and consider like exterior landscaping and all the various options to do that in a way that was more fire resistant, but also address things like emissions reductions, electrification. So we'd be happy to send both out links to the Rebuild Resource Guide as well as the USGBC resource, because they're both work together and complementary.
Chair, if I may have one just quick follow-up.
Yes,
thank you for that.
please.
I'm just wondering if there's questions about discussion within that framework around insurance, right? As far as making sure that we consider alternative ways to support homeowners to be able to afford their insurance if they're asking to harden their homes, right? If these guides are helpful, what are resources we're providing? Thank you.
So these guides don't speak specifically to that, but the assumption behind them is if you were to, as a homeowner, pursue heavy resilience efforts, that it would dramatically increase your chances of having access to insurance as well as having more affordable insurance. However, there's a recognition throughout this process that there's a systemic issue that goes beyond both the individual lot as well as into the just greater risk factor statewide that needs to be addressed through other means. So that is an issue that it tries to get there, but it cannot address all of that at once.
Thank you, Member Sorrow. Good questions. Any other questions? I see no one raised. So thank you very much, Leslie, for the presentation. So moving on to agenda item number 5. This is planning for extreme heat. And so we will have Ryan Wolf going up from here to the podium.
So good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel today and a little bit of background on it. In your staff report, we talk about how extreme heat is increasingly becoming incorporated into planning requirements as cities move forward. And so in this, we mention how extreme heat as a hazard is something that cities are increasingly need to include in there. In terms of extreme heat, it may not be, as as explosive as a topic as say like wildfires, but of course it is the most deadly. Extreme heat is the most deadly climate issue, both in our region, nationwide, and globally, and requires a really systematic approach to understanding what its impacts are, as well as all the different strategies we need to implement to move forward. So today we have a couple really great panelists for you. I've seen them both present before and really learned a lot from them, and I think you will as well. So the first one will be Dr. Mark Fudernick. He's a medical doctor and works as an emergency physician and a climate advocate. So he has his feet in both worlds. Currently, he serves as the National Director of Sustainability for U.S. Acute Care Solutions, which is a multi-specialty physician services company, and they're focused primarily on emergency medicine. But he also is the founding managing editor for the Open Access Journal of Climate Change and Health. He's also joined the steering committee of the Medical Society Consortium on Climate and Health in 2019, and is a representative for the California State chapter of the American College of Emergency Physicians. So he's going to give the first presentation, fantastic presentation. You will learn a lot from it. Our second presenter, who also has just, I think, worked with her team to come up with a great framework, which they're advancing for helping cities identify a strategic and systematic way to approach extreme heat adaptation, is Ananta Buena Rudy. She's a professional landscape architect and also serves as the Assistant Director and Chief Sustainability Officer for the Bureau of Street Services with the Department of Public Works for the City of Los Angeles. She's done some great things at Streets LA, including leading a team that secured around $300 million in active transportation, urban greening, and stormwater caption grants, in addition to leading efforts to update the city plans and policies for tree planting. So both will be great. I'll kick it off to Mark. He'll come up here and let him get started. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ryan, and really appreciate your inviting me to share my perspective with you all. Ryan pointed out two items in my background that I'll just sort of highlight because I think they're pertinent. One is the group I work for is a massive medical group. We run 400 emergency departments and ICUs and similar acute care services across the country, including about a dozen here in Southern California, which means I really understand what is impacting people in real life right now today. And number two is, as the founder of the Journal of Climate Change and Health, I understand the science on this. Everything we're going to talk about today is stuff that has already happened, already proven with peer-reviewed scientific literature. None of this is conjecture, and I think that's important. I'm just going to sort of hit the highlights on this topic, which is incredibly deep, and the impacts of climate change on our health is incredibly deep. This is just one sliver of one topic, but I will jump in. And I understand this takes a second, and so I will tell you the first thing I'm going to show you. I'm going to try to move quickly because I don't think anybody here would doubt that it's getting hotter, although in some audiences they debate that. What I'm going to show you real quickly is how much hotter and how impactful it is. And so this is here in North America in the summertime temperatures. This is the baseline. I always have to look again. So a 30-year period that includes when I was born, so a long time ago. That's the baseline. I want to point out that the bottom is standard deviations from the mean for those of you who are scientists. That means the maroon colors that are beyond that number 3 happen less than 0.1% of the time in this baseline. Now, if we hold the baseline and we go forward and we start to look at subsequent decades, which I understand will happen shortly. Still hasn't moved yet, right? I understand there's a little bit of light. Here we go. You start to see that the temperatures are shifting. So these are the actual temperatures, but holding that normal bell curve there in the green line. And you start to see some maroon colored days that are popping up. These are days that essentially didn't exist when I was a kid. And then we're going to keep going. How about 2010 to 2020? So this isn't even the last 5 years, which includes all the hottest years on record. This is even a little bit of old data, and you can see how many extremely hot days we're experiencing that literally did not exist 30, 40 years ago. So it really is getting hotter, and it really is impacting our health. I have to always click this I see. So the next thing I want to talk about is how do we manage heat in our body? What is the physiology of this? And you'll see why this is so important. So many of us probably saw a slide like this in high school, all these different ways that we convect and conduct heat out into the environment, but none of that works if it's 99 degrees or hotter because we're 98.6. So where's it going to go? So we only have one mechanism when it's 100 degrees out, and that is to perspire. When we perspire, just so everybody knows what we're talking about, you put a little bit of water on the skin. When that water evaporates, means it launches from our body into the air and escapes away. It requires some energy to go from water to water vapor, and it takes that little bit of energy from our skin. That happens over beyond trillions, many, many, many molecules across our body, and it cools our body. That's what perspiration does. That's how we survive when it's more than 100 degrees out. But what if it's really, really humid? And so the sweat doesn't evaporate. It just drips off of us. Well, that doesn't work. That's not cooling us down. So if it's really, really humid, our body doesn't cool as fast and it feels hotter. Well, it's more than feels hotter. Physiologically, it's hotter. Our body temperature is not cooling down. It's not working. And this chart shows you just how impactful this is and why it's really only relevant to talk about heat index when we talk about heat illness. So here in Southern California, I don't know if everybody's noticed, but this has changed a bit in the last few years, but certainly 10 years ago in Southern California, it was typically around 25% humidity, low humidity. And if it was 100 degrees out, I would still go play tennis, right? Because it feels like 101 degrees and we could survive that. And I sweat normally, and I'm a healthy person. But sometimes you've probably noticed it feels a little muggy, a lot more the last few years. Our humidity is increasing. So it might be 50% humidity. Now when it's 100 degrees out, it feels 120. It's really, really hot, right? Even here in Southern California. But I grew up in Miami, where 75% humidity is completely normal. And I can tell you, when it's 100 degrees out, the tennis courts are empty. Why? Because it's 144, feels like. That is unsurvivable. This is a serious problem. So as the temperature increases, the humidity is also increasing. The heat index is climbing even faster than the temperature. I'm not sure why we don't talk about that more, but the heat index is climbing very fast, and that's what impacts us. You will start to see a new measurement. I won't go into this deeply, but heat index doesn't even take into account the sun shining on you. Anybody who goes for a walk knows the difference between when you're in the shade and when you're in the sun. It's really dramatic. It's immediately. So this is called the wet bulb globe temperature. It's the little device you see on the football fields, that orange thing that looks like an old cell phone or a walkie-talkie. And that's determining just how hot it really is physiologically, because it takes into account the shade and the sun and the wind movement and all of those other factors. And we're going to start to see this a lot more because it's a lot better at predicting our physiologic response. So now we're going to get to something that Ryan said. By the way, I am an ER doc coordinator. I speak fast and there's a lot to talk about here. So just interrupt me if you have a question or you need to clarify something. But Ryan mentioned this. More people die of heat illness from heat events than all of these other hurricanes and earthquakes and other things combined. But that's actually just the tip of the iceberg. It's actually much bigger than that because it doesn't count all the things that people die from when we're exposed to the heat. It only counts heat illness. If somebody's found very hot or was exercising, was very hot and actually died. The reality is we see a much broader range of illness. So a quick study here, this was done in the British Medical Journal. This looked at 3,000 counties in the US. And the point that I want to make here is hot is not a pure number. Hot is hot for that area and those people, because that's what they're used to. So whatever the 95th percentile is of hot in Montana is hot and dangerous. So when we look at that around the country, no surprise, ED visits go up. Heat-related illness goes through the roof. But renal disease, renal impairment goes up 30% when it's hot out. And mental illness exacerbation goes up 8% when it's hot now. Let's put this together. There are many, many studies that describe all of these details, which honestly are scary. So overall, more people die when it's hot out, particularly if you look at days 4, 5, 6 of a heat event. Cardiovascular mortality goes up. Our number 1 and number 3 killers go up, heart attacks and strokes. More respiratory ailments. Sorry, many of you may know that the increased temperature increases ground level ozone, which is a lung irritant. So every asthmatic knows they're going to have trouble when it's hot out. So that's kind of a given. More preterm labor and delivery, more babies born premature. This was not done in rural India. These studies were done at Kaiser in California. So let's think about that. These pregnant women had insurance. They had a place to go, get into the air conditioning, cold IV fluids, medications to stop their labor. But because it was hot out, they still had their babies too early. And now think about the lifetime of consequences. This is a real problem that we need to prevent. More trauma, more interpersonal violence. It's really true. This hot under the collar thing, it is real. People want to kill each other when it's hot out. We see that in tweets. Tweets are more violent when it's hot out. There's lots of things that show how it affects our brain and our mental stability. And then we'll go into that. And that's really true. Psychiatric illness increases. We used to think it was people trying to get out of the heat, but it's not. More suicides are completed when it's hot out.
Sorry, Doctor.
Doctor, we have a comment on line.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. Sorry,
Fine.
Doctor. If you wouldn't mind going back to the last slide. Just a quick question. Sorry, Brian. Brian Jost, Chino Hills. These outcomes, do we know, how do I say it? Are I guess in these studies, is it people that are at home that are experiencing it? Is it folks that are exercising, workers out on a construction site? I guess what's the nature that leads to these outcomes?
Great question. And we're going to talk about that. And often we'll talk about vulnerable populations, who's most at risk. But I'll just sort of cut to the end and say that I think a lot more people are vulnerable than we consider. So, of course, homeless people are very vulnerable. But how about outdoor workers? More vulnerable than outdoor workers are intermittent outdoor workers, teachers who aren't used to being outside for 2 days on a field trip, suddenly are outside in the heat on a field trip. So it's a complex and really good question. I'm going to hit a little bit of that further on in the lecture.
Right. Thank you, sir.
We don't think as well when it's hot out. Imagine how impactful that is. This is just one of many studies that shows that if you look, not just on that day, but if you look at how much heat kids were exposed to, when they repeat the PSAT, they do worse if they were exposed to heat over the previous 3 to 6 months. We now know that both with heat and with air pollution, the temperature and the AQI on that day makes you think more poorly. We have studies done with that Lumosity brain app that shows that when the AQI is higher, people score worse. And studies that show that over the course of months and years, when we're exposed to more air pollution or more heat, we don't think as well. Now imagine our future when we're not creating as well, managing our problems as well, literally not thinking as well. Again, we have to prevent this problem. This I find is actually, please tell me if I'm going too long, I can try to cut short, but this I think is the most important part because this is where you can save a life. What we need to do is better recognize severe heat illness. And when you hear lectures about heat illness, you'll hear about heat rashes and heat cramps and heat exhaustion, all these things. All you need to understand is what heat stroke is and that all the other heat symptoms need to be managed aggressively to not get to heat stroke. So what's heat stroke and what do we call it that? Heat stroke is when your body temperature, and I don't know if you realize this, but when you're out and you're hot and you had heat illness, your body temperature actually increases. If we check your temperature, it's 104. When your body temperature increases to the point that you're damaging your organs, that's heat stroke. The problem is I can't see your liver or your kidneys, and I can't see your heart unless you actually pass out, but what I can see, and you all can see, is each other's brains. If someone is slurring or wobbling or confused, they're not thinking right, they have heat stroke. And that is a medical emergency. If you don't cool them, they have an 80% chance of dying. That is about as bad a medical emergency as we have. So the two things to learn today is if someone is having heat symptoms, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, they don't feel well, they're nauseated because of the heat, you need to treat that aggressively and cool them down. Once they have heat stroke, you absolutely must cool them down to save their life. You must get them out of the heat, and we'll talk about how to do that. Quickly, I want to make sure we're thinking about two different groups of people because often people really lock into one or the other, and we need to always think about both. So sort of the classic heat illness is an elderly person who's disabled, can't get out of the bed, doesn't have agencies, on medications that make their response to the heat impaired, and it's just too hot and they don't have air conditioning. And then until somebody finds them and they're really hot and they're in really bad situation. But there's also, and I would include infants in that, infants locked in a car, in that sort of lacking agency, lacking the ability to take care of themselves. But let's not also forget about the exertional, and this is a wide group of people. It's kids playing, it's sports, it's adults working outside. heavy uniforms, overweight, not acclimated, also maybe on medications like hypertension, which blunts your response to heat. And so we want to make sure we're thinking about both categories. And then the treatment is simple. I've been the medical champion for the LA Marathon a few times. We always had an ice bath. Ice bath is the answer. If somebody's having heat stroke, you cool them down as fast as you possibly can. How do you do that in a regular place? If you don't have that, set them up, get them wet, fan them off, ice in key areas, get them into a cool place. This is not a thing where you call 911 and you wait. This is a thing where you call 911 and you start figuring out how to cool the patient or move the patient, right? This is a minute's emergency. And all that other stuff works great. If you're having heat illness but not heat stroke, put your feet in a cold basin, wet yourself, fan yourself. That stuff really works. Pour some water on your head. That's why we do it. It works. And when you feel better, your temperature's coming down. If you don't feel better, what you're doing is not working. Our bodies are very good at this. All right. Sorry I did all of that so long. The real important thing is for all of you, I think, is how do we protect our communities? And so I want to hit a couple of highlights, but Anna is really going to get into this in a scientific and an effective way. The first, I want to talk about shade trees. They're very important, but it's not just because of the shade, which is obvious. Trees have their own form of perspiration. It's called transpiration. They pull water out of the ground. They release it out of their leaves. And when that water evaporates, it cools the temperature. How many of you walked into a forest and be like, wow, it's so nice, it's cool? You think it's the shade, it's transpiration. Trees actually cool the environment. So they're very important for cooling our environment. And the other I want to talk about just quickly is cool pavements and roofs and all kinds of surfaces. One thing I didn't mention, I pulled, just so you know, this lecture is much, much longer and more detailed. I pulled lots and lots of slides. I also think heat plans is very pertinent to today. So not just sort of the school plans being based on, let's say, heat index and not on heat, but also notifications, water delivery to homeless, nursing home, preparedness plans, things of that nature are all really important. But what I want to touch on for a second for today is solar reflectivity, which is cool surfaces, and the fancy term is albedo. Albedo is the measure for the reflectivity. So something purely white, the sun beams down on it, and the sun's energy beams back out into the atmosphere, and that item doesn't get very hot. We all know that, the difference between a white car and white seats versus a black car and black seats. Yes, sir.
Doctor, we have one question, might be on what we've already covered from Margaret Clark.
Yep.
Go ahead,
Happy
Margaret.
to hear it.
Yes, I love what you said about the shade trees, because I've been saying this for many years. Our house does not have air conditioning. It's well insulated. It's very old, but the trees that were planted in 1940 cool the air. And I've had people walk into my house and say, I didn't know you had air conditioning. I said, I don't. So one of the things that really frustrates me about Sacramento is they're so fixated on us building more housing that they're passing bills that don't require yards. So obviously there will be no trees. And we need to get that message to them that that's very important for all these things that are very scary about how it's affecting everything. So if you can get on that bandwagon with me, I would appreciate it. Thank you for your presentation.
I'm on that bandwagon, and most people feel like it's the design of their house without really thinking about the fact that it's so shaded and surrounded by trees. That's why they have a house that stays cool. I have a house like that as well. Anna is going to get into, again, exactly what you're talking about. Where is it that we need trees? Where is it that we need other stuff? And I'm going to talk a little bit about the other stuff, which is the reflectivity. So if you can see where Earth's reflectivity is. It's not very high. And again, these are some of these tipping points that you may have heard about. Well, as glaciers and the ice caps melt, Earth's average reflectivity goes down. We're moving in the wrong direction. As we build up our cities with all that asphalt, the Earth's reflectivity is going down. That is contributing to global warming. We need to move it in the other direction. And that's what reflective surfaces can do, both locally cooling the area and globally decreasing global warming. So I'm just going to run through these quick benefits. So you can do them anywhere. You can do them in any colors. What's great about the modern reflectivity is it doesn't have to be white, because we want to reflect all of that infrared and UV radiation as well. You can have a paint that actually looks blue, but because it's reflecting all that other energy, it is still way, way more cooling than normal black paint. And so you can see that on sport courts and things of that nature. And we've got some demos from Climate Resolve. You can do lots of different services that, again, works locally. There is a greenhouse gas reduction equivalent that may be fancy science that people want to dive into, but it's real. However large it is, it's real. Often these surfaces often these sealants can extend the life of the surface. So maybe we need to pave less frequently and can decrease cooling costs and AC use and things of that nature in a building, let's say, that does a reflective roof. One of the most important things to me is there's no entrenched opponents like the oil industry. I don't think they really care if I make my parking lot reflective, fortunately. And it's ready for deployment now. And there are lots of schools and other places that have it right now in LA. This is a video from Bill Nye, the science guy. Those of you who heard of him, an animated video that goes into reflectivity and more detail on what I just talked about. You can QR code it. I highly recommend it. It's very entertaining and educational. Close to the end. Let's not be these people playing golf while the world is burning around us. There is work to be done here. This is really important stuff that we can not ignore. And I don't think I need to tell this group that climate change is not a hoax, despite what some people have said. Very quickly, we just started a new professional society. I'm involved in lots of climate organizations, and a lot of them are medically focused. But what we realized is we need more interdisciplinary conversations and then actions. And so we've just started this. This is literally weeks old, where we just launched it. A lot of us who are in it so far are in the medical field, but we're looking for other professionals. We have engineers that have joined, climate scientists that have joined, et cetera, et cetera. So their QR code, Climate Health Society, feel free to look that up. I'm sure there are people here. And that is just my information at the very bottom. That is the only relevant thing on that slide. Thank you all. I'm happy to take questions and talk about other aspects.
Absolutely. Thank you for that presentation. Very informative, and we have a lot of work to still do, no doubt about it. So we have from Member Huff, please. Comment.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I've had a number of our residents complain about the results of replacing a roof, wood shake or something, with cool roof. What is sold to them as a cool roof, asphalt or whatever. And they say, it's not cool. This roof is not cool. It's like at 2 o'clock in the morning, all of that heat from the days comes down through the roof. And it sounds like a strange complaint, but I mean,
it
I
does
guess
to me sound like a strange
material.
complaint. We've done many cool roof projects. Owners uniformly tell us that they have decreased their electricity bills, that they start their air conditioning much, much later in the afternoon after doing their cool roof. And I'm not talking about white roofs. I'm talking about reflective shingles that look like every other shingle. So I haven't encountered that, but I try not to ignore anybody's concern. And I think we should kind of try to dive into that, but it could be.
So maybe the reflective shingle is the key there. I mean, but
yeah,
I guess
they are, and that's what
what
the cool shingles are, and they're reflective, and you can see ratings, and this is the whole complex area. These have been out for a long time, and are actually law for new roofs in LA, and I believe it's been decades, right, Ryan? That all new roofs are made out of cool reflective shingles in Los Angeles.
So that's regulated, basically. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And what's not is, what do we do on parking lots? What do we do on our roadways and other areas where we could be cooling the surfaces? But you're right, in Los Angeles, new roofs must be, and redone roofs must be made cool.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker, the doctor online? I don't see any raised hands from staff. So, well, thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate it. We'll look forward to Anna continuing the discussion here.
Light change. Okay, audio check. Good. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ana Tibuena Ruddy. I'm the Assistant Director and Chief Sustainability Officer for Streets LA, also known as the Bureau of Street Services. We're one of the 5 bureaus under the Department of Public Works, where I lead our cool paving initiatives as well as oversee the city's urban forestry operations. So that means my focus is on the 2 things people feel the most when they step outside, which is trees and pavement. When it comes to tackling extreme heat, those 2 tools, trees and cool paving, make up Streets LA's core extreme heat toolkit. Other approaches, like Doctor said, cool roofs or shade structures are important, but today I'll focus on what's directly within our purview, the street network itself. I'll share how our cool paving journey started small and grew into a decision framework that helps us figure out where each cooling tool delivers the most benefit. What began as a simple cost-benefit analysis has become a way for cities like ours to act on heat now strategically and even within tight budget constraints, which we're all experiencing, I'm sure. Let me just change the slide here. Okay. For context, Streets LA manages 23,000 lane miles of streets. That's the largest municipal street preservation program in the nation. We also care for nearly 700,000 street trees, making up the country's largest municipal urban forest. Together, these assets define how Angelenos experience heat across the public right-of-way. With that context, I'll share a brief history of how our cool paving journey began and evolved. So before that, you may have heard now a lot about how the power of cool surfaces, how they're rated, where they're being deployed, and the real world impact they're having in cities like Phoenix, Arizona, and Baltimore. We've also seen great research from NASA and public health experts like the doctor here today, showing just how urgent and effective these interventions can be. But most of what we've seen focuses on the big picture, citywide modeling, large-scale projections, or single solution strategies and case studies. What's been missing is something more grounded. How do cities actually make these decisions block by block, especially when budgets are tight and trade-offs are real? When I stepped into this role, I inherited a cool pavement pilot that had shown real promise and was already being used alongside street tree planting and shade structures. The program for cool paving on streets in Los Angeles began in June 2017. Since then, we've expanded significantly. 181 lane miles of cool pavement have been installed across 617 street segments, and we've planted over 5,600 trees as part of our Cool Neighborhoods program. There are some who believe that we should focus solely on trees and see any spending on cool paving as a misallocation, resources that could be used instead for planting or building out the infrastructure to support more trees. That view isn't unfounded. Trees provide powerful long-term benefits, cooling, shade, cleaner air, habitat. But many of the communities that need those benefits the most don't currently have the conditions to support trees. No parkway space, no capital improvements in place, and we know those improvements are years away. So for example, folks will tell me, why can't we have a curb extension or a sidewalk widening to accommodate trees? And we know when we apply for grants, those take many years before we even find out if we've been awarded the grant. And sometimes we're not awarded the grant. So in the meantime, there are folks that are waiting to have cooling approaches to help them out. And so can we really afford to wait? Cool pavements offer immediate measurable benefits, lower surface and ambient temperatures, as the doctor mentioned earlier, and can be applied right now in areas where trees are not yet feasible. They can be feasible in the future, but not at the moment in certain areas. Similarly, we can only apply cool paving on streets with high pavement condition index and in local streets where they tend to last the longest, and not on high traffic corridors. This isn't a matter of choosing one or the other. It's a matter of allocative efficiency. How do we use our limited resources wisely while delivering benefits now and laying the foundation for long-term resilience? So initially, we set out to answer that question with a simple cost-benefit analysis. But as we began the work, it became clear that costs and benefits are highly location-specific. What works in one place may not pencil out in another. A traditional case study couldn't give us the place-based guidance we needed. A single analysis wouldn't work for LA's diverse communities, so the work evolved from a static report to a decision-making framework. So beginning with tree planting, we started with the Bureau of Engineering's Infrastructure Equity Scorecard, which weighed in social, environmental, and infrastructure data. And then that showed where need is the greatest. And then there's field reality. We layered in Streets LA's tree inventory, what's plantable now versus where we'll need sidewalk widening, curb extensions, or new tree wells. And then we had expert input. We met with the Urban Forestry Equity Collective and USC's Urban Trees Initiative, now they're known as Shade LA, and figured out priorities that are tree specific, such as large planting sites and no overhead lines. Large planting sites are important to prioritize because there's less assets to maintain, yet it provides the biggest shade if we allow for large tree wells. Then we included, science and data, overlaid UCLA's heat research team's shade data, which showed lack of shade at noon, 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. And then we wrapped that all up, all these layers, data-driven prioritization plan guiding where we invest limited resources for the greatest community benefit. So in red in the image that you see there are areas in highest need of canopy, which is primarily in South Los Angeles and areas in the East Valley. We used a similar approach for identifying cool paving locations. The same thing with the Bureau of Engineering's Infrastructure Equity Scorecard. We also drew from Streets LA's street inventory, PCI ratings, local street designations, asphalted streets, and nearby community assets. And we applied that with the Infrastructure Equity Scorecard and the shade data used for tree planting. But we also we interviewed our maintenance crews. It's always important to get those folks involved because they provide insights that you wouldn't know just from like a planning perspective, right? So we included street sweeping routes, knowing that cool paving is the most effective when it's not covered in tire treads. And so we overlaid our plans with our street sweeping rights to align with maintenance schedules. And then we also identified proximity to already existing cool neighborhoods and proximity to transportation projects where people tend to walk to and from transit stops. So at a citywide scale, cool paving and tree planting priorities align closely, reinforcing each other as complementary cooling strategies. Equity is baked in both tree planting and cool paving maps. So what happens when we zoomed into these areas? So looking closely at one of several criteria we used for both cooling tools, you can see the tiers are inverted. For trees, what is considered a tier 1 top priority were available vacant tree wells or parkways. Whereas for cool paving, tier 1 is where there are no sidewalks or the sidewalk is less than 7 feet. Why 7 feet? 7 feet is the threshold where a tree well can be installed while still allowing for ADA access. So anything less than 7 feet, we cannot install a tree well or a parkway for a tree. So you can see in the photo on the left where cool paving is best because the sidewalks are narrow. And unless there was funding or a capital improvement project to allow for sidewalk widening or a traffic lane removal, it will be a while before trees can be accommodated at this location. So on the very right photo, you can see a high traffic major corridor, not likely the best location for cool paving, but has the sidewalk width to allow for tree plantings. In the middle is where a combination of trees and cool paving is best, as there is ample space for tree planting, and it's a local street that allows for cool paving to last a long time due to lower vehicular traffic. So this is what we're seeing on the ground in Los Angeles. LA not only has diverse communities, as I mentioned, but it also has diverse site conditions, and I'm sure it's the same for your cities, even sometimes within one block of each other. So as I mentioned, costs and benefits are highly location specific. So instead, our work evolved into something much more useful, a decision support tool. This tool is grounded in both research and real-world application. We pulled together data and scholarly articles, interviewed, academics, practitioner reports, interviews. We had meetings with NOAA and FEMA economists several years ago, city departments and developers of tools like iTree. And we paired that with our own local knowledge, our Streets LA's inventory of readily available tree planting and paving across all 15 council districts. So the result is a 10-step process that helps communities and council offices. This tool right now is still being refined. We're hoping to finish it by the end of this fiscal year, but it sets health-based cooling goals, understand baseline conditions, quantify what it would take, trees or cool paving to meet those goals, and identify available intervention sites, integrate community priorities, and weigh implementation costs, social, environmental co-benefits, and long-term outcomes. So this tool isn't just about comparing trees and cool paving. It's about helping neighborhoods make strategic, data-driven choices that reflect both urgency and local context. So yes, we're doing both trees and cool paving. Yes, we're engaging communities, but until now, we haven't had a clear, transparent way to connect those actions to outcomes that communities can help shape and track themselves. So step one, for today, we'll only go over the first 3 steps as we are in the middle of, as I said, developing the remaining steps, and we might even condense this into lesser steps. As the first step in the decision process, Streets LA can provide council districts with their baseline data, the number of units required to reach a 10%, 20%, 30% and 40% increase above their baseline, the projected temperature decrease, and the associated heat-related mortality decrease that is associated with a temperature decrease. Step 2, once a district knows how much cooling they want to achieve, the next step is figuring out where it's actually feasible to plant trees or apply cool paving. Our criteria tool helps map out the real-world opportunities, factoring in physical space, infrastructure, equity needs, etc. So this generates a menu of options for action. These maps are a zoomed-in version of the maps you saw earlier, color-coded for prioritization. Step 3, as you know, data isn't enough. Step 3 is where community knowledge comes in. We engage residents to identify their cooling priorities, what matters to them and where. It's not just about what's technically possible, it's about what people need, want, and are ready to support. This ensures the interventions are not only effective, but equitable. So the remaining steps deepen the analysis, matching priority locations with real opportunities, assessing how interventions fit with pedestrian activity, and examining cultural, environmental, and life cycle benefits. So we're looking at conducting life cycle assessments for each of the tools. We then look at costs, both upfront and long-term, and compare options side by side to help communities make informed, holistic decisions. So the science is clear. Modest increases in tree canopy or albedo can reduce temperatures, as the doctor covered, and lower the risk of heat-related illness and death. But these projections have limits. Mortality risk varies by place, by event, by individual. That's why our tool provides responsible estimates to help communities act now, even as the science continues to evolve. So what have we learned? First, this isn't a debate. Trees and cool paving are complementary tools. Second, we're still learning this is an evolving field. And third, we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Communities are facing extreme heat today. They need tools not just someday, but now. So what is great about this tool is that it's scalable. We can include shade structures or any future innovations that might come around the corner. I'm sure there will be many. Our goal is to keep refining this tool and share it with other cities. If LA can make heat resilience more actionable, more equitable, and more community-driven, other cities can do so too. So anyway, we hope this can be a model, not just for what gets built, but for how we decide where, when, and why to build it. And with that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Anna, for the presentation. Very good. Member Sorrow, she has a question also. Right.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I had a question about the capacity to maintain these trees once they're planted. That's the biggest challenge is, especially when we've gone through water droughts. So do you work with the neighborhood council to adopt trees in their neighborhood? Like, how do you make sure that they're taken care of?
Right. So trees are maintained or watered in the city in many different ways. So for us, we have an in-house tree watering crew, but we also have community-based organizations that plant trees. And through the grants that they apply for, they work on establishing those trees. We also work with Metro in trying to establish the trees that they plant. So there's various groups involved in watering the trees. But as you know, everyone is experiencing budget constraints. And so trees, just like anything else, require continued maintenance, and it all depends on what the budget allocations are for that year.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and also Member Crosswhite, please.
So I saw on your slide that the cooling pavement, you have to have your PCA. So first you have to have a relatively nice street, which makes sense. But then once you do it, how often does that have to be redone? And do you know the relative cost for the application? Like, is that something that you have to do every 5 years or every 3 years, or
Yeah,
how does that work?
it's interesting. We haven't replaced any of the ones that we've installed since 2017. What we find that affects its effectiveness is the tire tracks that go over it. And so that's why we try to put it on streets where we have sweeping routes, so that it's constantly cleaning it. And sometimes, like when it rains, when it does, it cleans it up, and then the effectiveness rises again. So it goes up and down depending on just how clean that surface remains. But we haven't replaced any of the ones that we've installed as part of our pilot. I mean, I think the very first few applications, when we were just testing out the right products, we did replace those, but those are just like in the testing phase. But for the pilot, we haven't replaced any, and we test them every month.
So for communities that this is a new thing, what would you recommend in terms of, like, I mean, there's probably people out there saying that my product is the best cooling product. Like, what would you recommend in terms of trying to figure out who, which of those products actually seem to work? And, especially if you have smaller staffs, I mean,
yeah.
So I'm just trying to get a sense
Yeah,
of how
so so for us, we've actually just awarded the contract for cool paving in the city, and we've awarded it to 2 companies that we've vetted to be the best. When we've done the initial pilot, we've tested from different companies, and we've vetted the ones that work the best and where the product lasts the longest. And so we've just awarded that. And so if folks are wanting to, let's say, apply for a grant for cool paving, we'll hope to guide them through the prioritization plan. And then within that, they can decide which ones are priorities for them from what is feasible technically in terms of PCI, local streets, et cetera. And then from there, they'll be using the contractors that we've awarded the contract to.
And then just on your tree has, given what happened in January, is that changing any of the feasibility calculation, especially on the urban wildland interface?
In terms of the prioritization
right,
plan?
when you're trying to decide where trees can go, have you had to sort of change that piece of the calculation?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. I'm having our GIS folks recalibrate the plan because, in the urban environment, things change all the time. And so what's nice about having not a static plan is having a live plan that we can recalibrate as conditions change. So that's part of the thing where I'm like, can you take a look at the Palisades? Because maybe before they may not be like high on the list in terms of urban canopy, but maybe now they could be part of like maybe the medium priority. Surprisingly, though, in the Palisades, over 60% of trees survived. So that's, go trees.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Member Huff, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So does the city have a funding priority process in deciding on which projects to do? It sounds like there's a grant application process.
No, so we have a urban forestry division, which I oversee, and we are funded to do tree planting. And also as part of our sustainability efforts, we also have the coal paving initiative. And so those are funded as of now. And so that's covered in our funding. But to supplement that, we encourage community-based organizations and other folks to apply for grants for additional tree planting.
Oh, that was my concern in the current economic climate that at this point you have funding for that.
At this point, we do.
So I love the methodical approach to what are unfortunately limited resources. So that really makes a lot of sense. I have a question back on the cleaning as well. Does regular street cleaning get you back to a good albedo, or might there need special cleaning for these services?
It does. Sweeping will get it back to a higher albedo, not as the original one. When it rains, it goes back to the original albedo. That's the best cleaning is rain. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And we have one public comment from Elaine online. Unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think Member Crosslight really asked most of my questions, but Simi Valley is very good, designated tree city, etc. But I know that we have not done anything, to my knowledge, with cool paving. And so I want just a little more understanding of the chemical makeup. What is actually literally within this paving? It's more than reflective paint, I would assume. What is it that classifies it as effective?
Yeah, very good question. I think I would probably set up a meeting with you and we can go over the technical makeup of the cool paving. And it's another department within the city that does the testing for us. It's a general services department. And so they list down all the chemical makeup of the cool paving.
But looking at your visual, it's really just, it's applied by spray, it would appear.
Right. So when we piloted this program, it was first applied manually, if you can believe that, with mops, and it seems so ancient now to think about it. But now we've encouraged that industry to develop innovations, and part of it is to create an equipment that now sprays it so that it's evenly applied and definitely more efficient than a bunch of crews mopping this on the street.
Very interesting. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I thought there might be one more question just that I would like to raise and as a tag on to Member Crosswhite's.
Yes.
So Mark mentioned in his presentation that there is a potential benefit in terms of decreasing the frequency of repaving from cool surfaces, and was just curious, in your program so far, have you been able to quantify or identify any benefits in terms of reduced maintenance of roads as a result of the cool paving?
Yeah, so according to our maintenance folks, we also have a slurry program, and so there's a cost benefit to that. And because of the tight budgets, the slurry just gives us more bang for the buck. It's just a lot less costly than using cool paving for maintenance purposes. So we're really focusing on the cool paving for cooling, for its cooling function.
All right. Well, thank you very much, both Dr. and Anna, for your presentation.
Thank you.
It kind of opened a whole nother door of questions, but I'll be looking and researching on them. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and move on. Oh yeah. Oh, for the. I should ask, in addition to our previous online public comment, do we have any other public comments, either in attendance or online? All right, seeing none. Thank you. Let's move on. I have a couple of things to talk about, and this will be an announcement for SGPT and CMAQ call for project award recommendations have been announced. Today's transportation committee, our colleagues are reviewing the recommendations today for disbursement of $1.25 billion in federal fiscal year 2026, 7 and 27, 28 certain transportation block grant for suggesting that but we'll look for those items and the outcome of that. These project nominations were submitted by eligible project sponsors for other respective county transportation commissions and evaluated according to the criteria outlined in the STP and CMAQ program guidelines. And there's been quite a topic of discussion for us. Oh, it is on. Maybe I'm not close enough. Thank you. So if approved, the funding recommendations will be presented to the Regional Council in December for approval. Upon the Regional Council approval, the project sponsors may proceed to their program, to program their projects to the Federal Trade or Transportation Improvement Program, or the FTIP, and begin the obligation process. So for more information, you can always look that up online and also in the previous agendas, STBG and it's called STBG and CMAQ, but CMAQ funding process. Visit SCAG's, the website for that item. Economic update, the 2025 Southern California Economic Update will take place during SCAG Joint Policy Committees meeting on December 4th at 9:30 a.m. The presentation will feature SCAG's annual economic report and analysis from SCAG's Economic Roundtable and will be followed by an in-depth discussion about the state of the economy moderated by former Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yvette Mackes for our staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yvette Macias, SCAG Government Affairs Officer for the Inland Empire. I have one update. SCAG has launched the Future Leaders Initiative, a new 6-month civic leadership pilot program for young Southern Californians interested in learning how regional and local governments collaborate for long-term change. Once a month, participants will attend interactive online sessions led by regional experts through thought leaders and SCAG staff to explore planning, policy collaboration, and advocacy. The final session will be held in person here at the downtown LA office, and the program is free to participate. Participants will also receive a $500 stipend upon completion. The application process for the Future Leaders Initiative is now open through November 25th. Individuals between 18 and 26 who live in one of the 6 counties in the SCAG region are invited to apply. Please share this opportunity with your networks or anyone that may be interested. And if any members in the room or online is interested in specific material, maybe to hand out at your city council meetings or talking points, please see me or email me, and we're happy to provide that. Thank you so much. This concludes my update, Mr. Chair, and I'll pass it back over to you.
Well, thank you very much. I tell you, there's been a lot of discussion on the opportunities for these young adults to get involved in some of the things that we do and have a better understanding. So I hope each of our cities can reach out and then to the local colleges or high schools and disseminate that. At this time, do we have this opportunity for any of the members, if they have any comments they'd like to share with the committee? And online, I see no one. So thank you very much for that. At this time, we'll go ahead and call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.